It's not the footwork. It's not the mechanics. It's not chemistry. It's the hair. It's gotta be the hair. And it goes like this. Put me in the game, I'm ready. I'll leave the team sure and steady with the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. Skull cap so much sweat don't drip down. Hair flowing as I throw touchdowns with the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Last Bull In. This is a pretty neat thing we have got going on here. We are right after an amazing victory, a 30-3 victory over Ohio. It knocked out Tettleton. The defense, what more can you say? Unbelievable. Total yards for UB, 421. Total yards for Ohio, 233. Licata, 13-23 for 252. Tettleton, 17-38 for 69 yards. But what more can you say? Turnovers. Each team had one. We had a forced fumble, which maybe they said it wasn't a fumble. We also had Licata through an interception. But I'll tell you what, Tyler Tettleton, Buffalo is his kryptonite. He just cannot do anything against this team. So Buffalo, they're a real team right now. So we've got a big game this week against Toledo. We've got an easy game, and then we've got the brawl for it all in Ralph Whistler Stadium. Let's get introduce some of other smart Bulls fans here. Matthew, say hello to everybody.
Hey everybody, good win tonight. Glad to see you around.
Tim.
Yes, we did it. We beat Ohio, which, is nothing new. Quinn is actually 2-2 against Ohio, but glad to be alive right after a very big win on the season.
Awesome. And we are missing Conrad tonight. Conrad is actually at the San Jose Buffalo game. Don't bother watching them. Sabres stink. They're down 1-0 just starting the second period. But let's circle back to this Ohio game. I don't know if anybody really had this game pegged that Ohio would only get 3 points. Let's start with the defense. We will go to the offense, but let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the linebackers, the secondary. Tim or Matt, what would you like to start? Obviously, Mac was great tonight, but what would you guys like to talk about? Anybody want to jump in with that? Let's start with defense first.
I was really pleased to see at the beginning of the game that Bean and Way were back. And you saw the difference pretty much immediately. The first couple, Ohio's first drive, Blankenship rattled off a couple, 5-6 yard carries, and I was kind of nervous. They had 5 or 6 straight plays with nothing but positive yards, and they were big chunks. And then the defense just kind of settled down, and I'd love to think that part of that was Blake Bean coming back, Colby Way coming back. But really, even beyond the big headliners, we were talking about the game threat on Bull Run, younger guys stepping up. Franklin and Brandon something or another. Crawford, one of the Cass Tech guys, really stepped up. Their names got called quite a bit tonight. Franklin was in on the sack, and he had another sack. I think, we really see, this last Bull in coming in with Tepper's defense. I'm worried about missing Redden, but Ohio's the best MAC offense we've seen so far, and I think it was our best defensive night of the season so far.
Totally agree. Tim, what's your thoughts about the defense tonight?
Yeah, Matt hit on what I was going to say, which is I was terrified of what this defense was going to look like without Redden. But they all came together, the guys who came in to replace Redden, and the other starters on the field really brought their game up. And, it's scary to think what the defense would look like tonight if Redden was actually out there as well. So on the secondary, I want to say, the secondary gets a lot of I would say bad press just because they're playing and they're being compared to Khalil Mack and the linebackers and Colby Way in the front three on the line. But they got beat a couple times tonight and got lucky. But overall, they played a pretty solid game. They played it against maybe the second best passing quarterback in the MAC. So between the pressure and the fact that defenders were just good enough in the secondary, I'm just amazed that Ohio was shut down as badly tonight as they were.
it's interesting, kind of a terrible blatant plug here, but Brewpeg, near and dear to my heart. There's only one person, and that was Bull Trojan, who took anything less than 20 points, and that was 10. So very interesting. I also thought I get Bean and Way back, tremendous. But Telton just from the first drive he looked calm. The second drive on, Telton's feet were quick. He was nervous, unsure of himself. Just Telton for some reason and Solich just to have a tough time with UB. Hey, let's circle back. Let's kind of address something real quick that of course is going to come out of this. Let's talk about the officiating. Obviously, that call on the safety where he threw that ball from the 4-yard line. I don't get that at all. I thought there was a clear overturn on the fumble that Mac forced. What's your thoughts? What's your initial reaction, gentlemen, on the refereeing of this tonight's game? Tim?
The refs were all around terrible. They didn't really favor either team, but I think Ohio got the worst of it because of those two particular calls. On the not overturning the fumble, you never saw where the ball was when his knee hit, and it's a shame because if the call had been right on the field, which was not a fumble, right, then it wouldn't have been overturned that way either. That's just one of those situations where replay can't overturn a bad call because they literally can't point at it. The reason why the safety wasn't overturned was because you can't challenge the spot of a call. Like there's no denying the fact that ball didn't make it to the line. That was an intentional grounding. So that call had to stand, and that's all you got on the replay. You can't go to the ref then and say, well, yeah, he committed that ball at the 4. It was a terrible call. Did it change the play of the game? I really don't think so, because their next play, if that's spotted correctly, is punting from the 3-yard line. And, what did UB do when we got the ball? We ran it right down the field. I think by that point in the game, the offensive line had worn down Ohio, and Oliver was just going to get his yards.
Hey, Matt, any of your observations over the reffing, the JV reffing for the MAC game tonight?
Yeah, JV reffing to say the least. I agree with Tim completely on the fumble call. It's one of those things where simply they didn't have a view of both the ball and the knee at the same time. They just couldn't. You can't by rule overturn that. I think if that happens 2 nights from now in Stanford, Oregon, there's enough camera angles where that call does get overturned. Despite being on ESPN, that's something to think about. The other thing with the refs is all these offensive pass interference calls. And, Bob D and Bucky Gleason were going nuts on Twitter about it. That first one, when Brim was covering on Ohio's first drive, I really didn't see it too well. Solich was pretty pissed off about that. There was one against Najee Johnson where they ran a pick, and it looked pretty much exactly like a moving screen at the top of the key in basketball. I don't have too much of a quibble with that. It's a shame because it was a great third down pickup, and they just ran like a draw to Oliver or something. It was part of that punt series to open the game. But even then, there was one where Newt's got a defensive holding call or something when he was coming back to the ball on a curl route, and he didn't get the ball, and then he stamped his feet and jumped up and down and waved around. And, I didn't see the play. When you saw the replay, it was holding, but the flag came in late, and I wondered, boy, like, these refs, did Newt's just, get his way, stomp and scream and get his way. And so the refs just all around, I agree with Tim. They were bad all around. There was, at one point in the first quarter, more penalties than there were first downs total for either team. And it wasn't after 2 drives. It was well into the first quarter. And it was just one of those things where I'm really glad that UB imposed their will, laid the bulldozer down in the third quarter. And really, I don't think that there's room to say that the refs cost the game. You always get these kids. I umpired baseball for 14 years growing up, and you get these adults who, you cost us the game, that one call at the end, whatever. The reality is the players are on the field and the coaches are coaching too. And I'm glad that UB was able to play the way they did, and I think it takes any doubt out. The refs were bad, but it's not the whole story. And the other thing I do want to touch on, which maybe we'll get to later, but Tim mentioned, the offensive line. He said by the point of the safety, the offensive line was getting a push. It was before halftime where I looked up and the offensive line on run plays was getting 2, 3, 4 yards of push before Bo even got to the line of scrimmage, which was just awesome to see, especially since one of the things I talked about last week was Ohio's D-line. So maybe we'll talk about that later, but I did want to get that plug in.
Sure, if you want to facilitate it, that's fine. You tell us where we want to go. But actually, what I'd really like to talk about now is I think we can all agree that the player of this game was Brandon Oliver. Unless anybody else wants to root for somebody else, let's put it this way: Brandon Oliver, 34 carries, 249 yards. He averaged 7.3 yards per carry, 2 DDs. With this long was 33 yards. Listen, CMU beat Ohio because of rushing, and Oliver beat Ohio the same way. So, guys, anybody disagree with me that Oliver shouldn't be the player of the game?
No, and I want to point out, we had talked preseason about like Dre Archer versus Brandon Oliver, which one's the more likely NFL back, and I still think Dre Archer on his measurables has something of an advantage. But there were 8 NFL scouts there tonight, and they saw that Brandon Oliver has that second cut perfected. They saw great balance. They saw unbelievable power. The few areas of Bo's game where he might not have been at that caliber where people will be talking about the next level, he's taken care of those. I mean, he was always a one cut back in previous years. Correct me if I'm wrong. But now he has that second cut, and he is just deadly coming out of that second cut.
What I loved is the patience that you saw from him. There's a couple times where try to take it short side, which was working, where they just, actually Ohio State had 1 or 2 times where they actually stopped it. Patience stopped, looked back. A couple times where he could have really kind of come around, but that's just a kid who's got 5 years or 4 years of running the ball, stuck it up there, got 3 or 4 yards. It made a big difference in this game. Matt, your thoughts on Bo today?
Yeah, I can't disagree with Bo as the player of the game. I feel shame that I only had him for 170 in my bonus brew peg last week after the guy from CMU put up 180. I should have had Bo much higher than that. Bo, you guys said it all. He hits the hole hard. He's got the vision 3 strides before he hits the line of where the hole's going to be. And, like a chess player, he sees not just the first cut but the second. The announcers today pointed out a couple times that nobody stopped him in the front on the first level. Nobody stopped him today, and that's par for the course for him. Early on, his first carry, they got him for a 5-yard loss, and in those first couple series, we had some trouble. But once the O-line got gelled, Bo was seeing the cuts that he was going to make 3 strides down the road before he even broke through the offensive line. A comparison I really want to make is a couple of years ago, T.Y. Hilton, who I think is now with the Colts, had like a 3-touchdown game all on 3 long bombs for Mario Cristobal's, I think it was Florida International team, on like a Wednesday night in the Sun Belt, something like that. And he just blitzed that game and took it over, and he got all sorts of pub out of it. And T.Y. Hilton's a good player, but I maintain that he got drafted and got his NFL look because of that game. And I think this was Bo's T.Y. Hilton game. OU's strength is their defensive line, and he just 7 yards per carry with a long of 33, no big 70-yard break to pump those stats up is monstrous. And even though our offensive line looked great, like I said, he was seeing cuts. He was seeing the second and third cut before he even hit the line of scrimmage, and it was just an all-around display of what Bo brings to the table today. It was great to see.
Thank you, Bo. It's been fun watching you play. That was obviously this is the seniors' last home game at UB Stadium. I tell you, Bo to me, people talk about Starks. I'll put Bo up there as my favorite running back because I remember his first couple of years. We had 0 passing game, so to see Bo do that was pretty incredible. Looking at the receiving, you had 6 receivers had catches for UB. Newts led everybody with 4 catches, 75 yards, averaging 19.8, 2 Ds, long 25. Guys, is it just me, or do you think that Newts, obviously big game, 2 beautiful TDs, but it seems like the last couple of games he's been awful quiet. Thoughts on that, guys?
It's because the quarterback that Licata is, right? I mean, the way Quinn is using Licata is he's a smart passer who you use to keep teams honest against the run and the pass. So with, when you have Oliver running for 250 yards, I mean, how much are you going to throw the ball to Newts? The fact he's there to keep, I mean, it was the minute Ohio came into the box to try to shut down Oliver, that's when Newts really started doing damage, and that's That's the passing game that Quinn has created. It's the passing game I think Licata is really well equipped to play, and it's the one that's winning games for us.
Great point. So, Matt, overall, what do you think, if you can break down Licata's game and talk about the wide receivers? What's your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, you know, if you had given me a Nostradamus look at this game and hadn't said anything about Bo and just said, you know, Licata's going to throw to 6 wide receivers today, I would have said, boy, like that's exactly what he needs to do. I've been really pleased as the season's gone on how Licata has gotten more comfortable with more guys than Newts. He seems to be always hitting Fred Lee at exactly the same time, and Willoughby and Ross have both, and even Gordon and Hughes have come up with some pretty clutch catches the last couple weeks. And it's really nice to see. And honestly, maybe because Bo was working so well, I'm almost surprised to hear that he hit 6 different guys. It didn't feel like as diverse of a game that I was calling for. But I don't have any complaints about the execution of the offense today. I think there was a pass to Fred Lee that came at the perfect time. I think it was on 3rd down, but it was just a great snag. It was a crossing pattern towards the right sideline. And he got rocked, and he popped right back up. And that's, you know, even aside from the playmaking, that's a great, you know, leadership thing. Is, you know, he just got popped on that and stood right back up, and it's great to see as we're losing Newts and Lee next year to see kind of the standard they're putting on the field. I'm really pleased with the wide receivers in general. They you know, they're stepping up. The young guys are getting their snaps. We've talked about how with big leads, you know, the underclassmen are getting their shots. And we're hopeful, you know, if we get a bowl invite, we get another month out of practice for it. And I think the chance that we're getting them some game action this year is just ideal. And Licata's getting more comfortable spraying the ball. He looks awesome in the pocket. He barely ever makes a poor decision. And it's just good all around.
So I think Licata, the one thing that you can definitely talk about Joe about this year, I think the biggest point of Joe is definitely not making decisions. That, you know, that end zone interception could have been more towards the corner of the end zone. But again, I'm not gonna bash Joe too bad about that. But I do like his smarts. I like there's a couple times where he got out of the pocket, threw the ball away. So amazing game. You're going to see probably the Buffalo people jump on this bandwagon. Let's talk about the next game. So we've got Toledo coming up next week, Tuesday, another Tuesday night game in Toledo. Matt, do you want to jump on your early prediction of what you think the line's going to be and what what this game's going to be?
Sure. Toledo scares me for many of the same reasons wary of OU, but I've got much stronger fear of Toledo. As pleased as I am with, you know, Licata, as I just talked about, Licata making smart decisions and not seeming to get rattled as the pocket collapses, and Bo being able to ground and pound. Toledo can score fast, and I don't know about getting into a shootout because Toledo's used to shootouts, and so are, you know, I don't know what our offensive line will be able to do to wear them out. And they got playmakers at wide receiver and running back, and their last game on Saturday, Fluellen came out, and their next guy stepped in and I think ran for 144 or something like that. I think it's at Toledo. I think Toledo will be favored by between a field goal and a touchdown. I'll say Toledo by 5 or 6. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think we've said this week after week as the competition slowly gets tougher, but it's important not to come out slow. Today, both teams and the refs were off their game, and it was just kind of mud for a whole quarter. And it was nice to go into the half up 7-3, knowing that we were getting into gear. But against Toledo, it's gotta happen quick. And I'll say the same thing I did about Ohio. First blood is so important, and this is a team that in UB that plays with a lead really, really well. And we just haven't seen them play from behind. In a competitive game, they were behind against Baylor and like whatever. We didn't learn anything from that. You know, they were behind against Stony Brook, but they were playing in the contrived overtime rules, getting the ball in the 25. So just from not having anything to draw on, I don't know how we'll play from behind. And so my big key to the game for Toledo is getting that momentum and grabbing it, playing their game from the beginning, and not taking 10, 15, 20 minutes to warm up.
Hey, Tim, looks like we got a special guest tonight. Tim, if you could kind of talk real quick, your thoughts on Toledo. And Sasha, let's talk about what happens and what UB did tonight to kind of set themselves apart in the MAC. So obviously, this is a big win. Talk about, obviously, we still got Bowling Green. They're still a player. So why don't you talk about what you see kind of happening at the rest of the season? I mean, I know we've got 3 games left, but really in my heart we've got 2. I really think that Miami should be an easy victory. Sorry, but I really think there's really two games left. And for UB, I'm thinking now to have 8 victories. I'm going to assume it's going to be 8. There's no reason why they don't go to a bowl. Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, with Toledo, it's going to be about stopping the running game, and I think a big part of that's going to be Fluellen. Ahead or behind, it doesn't matter. What matters is how are they running the ball. No one who has lost Toledo has forced them to try to be a one-dimensional team, and I think that's a huge part of the game for Buffaloes. And we try to make them one-dimensional like we made Ohio one-dimensional today. I mean, the big thing with Ohio was the front 7 was the Bobcat Motel. They checked in, but they didn't check out. They ran into a pile of guys, got a yard or 2, and that was it. I think UB, in terms of their stature, just did themselves a huge favor in the MAC. We have 2 good teams left in our schedule, Bowling Green and Toledo. And Toledo's a very good team. I mean, Toledo, I think, in most of the polls that cover everyone, has Toledo, I think, in the 30s or maybe very low 40s. So, the big thing to remember here is if Ohio beats Bowling Green next week and we manage to beat Toledo, we have pretty much clinched the MAC East at that point in time. And so this Toledo game is just huge for the season. We win this, we win Miami. Even if Bowling Green wins out, that means that we have a home game to win that division. So, it can't be said enough. I think Toledo may be the best team we play all year. And we'll see how we do on the road. The Glass Bowl is not a fun place to play.
I'm actually, I agree with you, Tim, but I would also kind of say that if we do lose to Toledo and Toledo, I'm not going to be devastated. I'll be, as long as they play a good game, I'm not going to be devastated. I think there's no reason why UB couldn't go in there and win. But again, you're right. Come back, beat Miami, and then set up a great game at Ralph Wilson Stadium. Hey, a couple of things I thought overall, other than one play, I thought our special teams did a nice job. Secondary has been much aligned this year. Still a little bit nervous, but I think that, obviously our front guys do a great job of forcing passes and putting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Linebackers are more you can say, but I'd like for one of you guys to jump on this. I think there's something that maybe I don't give Quinn enough credit ever, so I'm going to kind of let you guys kind of give Quinn credit. The one thing I want to talk about is a great offensive line. I thought the offensive line did a great job. Maybe Matt, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I kind of mentioned it earlier. Just there was a moment where I looked up and Bo Oliver hit the offensive line with a line of steam, ahead of steam at full speed, and they were already 3 yards downfield. You talk about running backs being able to always fall forward and always be able to move the pile and this and that. And the offensive line just made it real easy today. And especially after the injury to Carlson, it's great to see them continue to gel. John Kling has been able to step in. A lot of credit to Trevor Sales at the center position. That's kind of the pivot of the whole offensive line, makes all the calls. It's just that I think it was 16, it might have been 13, Bo's touchdown run around the corner. That was a run to the short side, and nobody touched him. All he did was run to the corner and turn left and run down the sideline, and he had 3-4 offensive linemen with him as he made it to the sideline. The announcers made a point at one point that Trevor Sales gets off the center and runs laterally along the line as fast as anyone they've seen all year. And that's a big compliment, regardless of who they've actually seen all year. It's nice to see. There's nothing I love more than watching in the run game an offensive lineman pull and blow up a linebacker, 3 yards downfield. And, our strength, Conrad was saying at the beginning of the year, our strength was to run to the left. And after the Carlson injury, you got to say, like, all right, there's going to be a hole. The offensive line depends so much on communication and gelling and getting comfortable with each other, and it's like they haven't missed a beat. Just the fact that Oliver can run 7 yards a carry without busting a 70-yard run, like I said earlier. The fact that he can run a 13-yard corner run, on the short side without getting touched speaks a lot of credit to the blocking. I don't quite have the eye to look for, people moving to the second level in real time unless I'm already prepared to watch for that. But I'm certain if we look back at that, that some of those offensive linemen are shedding their block, at the perfect time and getting to those linebackers. And quite honestly, could you imagine what they do with Boomer Brock? Like, what would the run game look like with him at full strength and with the power fullback that we had at the beginning of the season? So
that would be interesting. Hey, Tim, I think maybe the only thing, if you want to talk more about the offensive line, Tim, by all means, go ahead. But the only thing that I was a little bit surprised was how much we came up passing the ball. Any thoughts on that?
I think for a period in the second quarter, Jeff Quinn definitely was outsmarting himself. There were, I think, 5 or 6 straight passes at one point, and we were running the ball all over him before that. So I was a little surprised, but I can kind of understand. You don't want to keep your team too one-dimensional, and we were really looking like the one-dimensional team there. You want to keep them honest, keep them out of the box, and we saw later on that the passing game can be really effective. I was curious about the types of passes being called. There were a lot of low percentage, long passes, and that's not really what I was hoping to see from the team if they were going to put the ball up at that point.
I agree, and it just seems like when they started doing that passing is when, and Brandon is the type of runner that needs to kind of get his motor warmed up a little bit. And it just seems like when they started doing that passing was when Brandon was starting to get hot. But again, what more can you say about Brandon Oliver? Interesting week on the Brew Peg. Not a ton of points. No one really called this game. So we had me just 14-14 and Kirk Dahlberg with 4 points. I'll confer with the tribe, the Brew Peg tribe, and we'll pick a sole winner. So take a look for that. Probably be tomorrow morning before you see that. Gentlemen, it's coming up here on midnight on the East Coast. Fantastic victory. It's fun to be a Bulls fan. Matt and Tim, start with you. Give me your shout-outs, Tim. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you're looking forward to and what's on your mind.
I'm going to throw a shout-out to Jeff Quinn because he is serving up a heaping dose of crow to a lot of people who have said that he will never get UB to this point. And I was one of those people. After that Stony Brook game, I thought this will never be a team that wins 6 games with Quinn at the helm. And the other reason I want to give the shout-out to Quinn is because apparently he confessed to some announcers at ESPN that he made a terrible mistake his first year by trying to implement the Cincinnati offense, and that he learned from that and went to an offense which is significantly different. And that's what we've seen. We've seen over the past 3 years the building of a solid team that recruits mid-major talent. So thank you, Jeff, for serving up crow. Keep doing it because every week Conrad wants you fired unless you win.
Conrad, yes. Definitely, this wasn't about the players so much as it was about a good game plan, a whole team effort. So where many times great players won the game for us, this was a whole team effort. Matt, your shout out before we call it a night.
Yeah, my shout out, and this is one I've been sitting on for a little bit, but it's going to come out today, goes to Derek Brim. At times I've been a little bit critical of Derek Brim. And part of that is because he was a year or two below me at Canisius High School and we ran track together. And my Derek Brim story is there was one point where he told us that he didn't run as well in a 100-meter dash because he didn't pace himself, which I just get a kick out of because it's a 100-meter dash. And I was honestly shocked when I left Canisius High School and then I found out that he, got onto the UB football team. And I'm really glad to see, Coach Quinn has always said great things about him. I had been a little hard on him last year, a little nervous when he had to step in this year. But he's really, there's been a couple plays this season where he's stepped into run coverage and just stepped up and laid a hit on guys. He had that great pass breakup at the end of the first half today. That was a fantastic play. He went over the top and around the guy and poked in with his right arm to knock the ball out. And that's not a play that you see people make without getting a flag too often. And it's just really nice to see in the wake of, the Redden injury that we talked about to death. So if Tim's going to eat crow about Jeff Quinn, I'll eat crow about Derek Brim, and I'll say he's, turned into a really nice player. And I don't know if he's got the playing on Sundays thing, but he's definitely a huge asset to the team, and it's great to see the secondary, the next bull-in thing in the secondary there too.
Appreciate that. Well, we're all, isn't it, this crow doesn't taste too bad, boys. When you have a 7-game win streak, you're 7-2 overall, 7-2 overall, you're 5-0 in conference. Your 2 losses are against top 7 teams. This crow actually tastes pretty decent, gentlemen. So, with that being said, we're going to go back one more time. Hey, Tim, what you got, Tim?
I have to, since we're in a crow-eating mood, the Buffalo News is quick to point out that this is the first 7-game in-season win streak since 1897, and I feel like that's something I, of all people, should have known before they did, so kudos to them on throwing that tweet out there.
I don't mind that. I just was disappointed. I thought that we would have something more, maybe a front page. It was top 10 things to look for the Buffalo Bills on the first page. I thought that the Buffalo News would have ran something about this game, how big this game was, nationally televised, a guy going in the first round being drafted. So as much as you want to give the Buffalo News some kudos, I'm going to take it right back. Gentlemen, wonderful victory. Again, if you're just checking in, this was a great victory by UB. Offensively, defensively, Buffalo wins this game 30-3. They take their record up again. Their record again is 7-2, 5-0 in MAC. They have put themselves clearly in the driver's seat for the MAC. Great things, just a great time to be a Bulls fan. But gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a great night. We'll be talking again a couple more times. Don't forget, I will go brew peg results tomorrow. Matt and Tim, say good night.
Good night, all. Enjoy the win. Tomorrow, you start getting ready for Toledo.
And good night, everybody. Get ready on Friday for the start of basketball season. And if you haven't forgotten, check out Monday for the new Lambert Cup standings. I have a feeling we'll be at the top of the poll again next week. And like Tim said, Toledo preparation starts tomorrow.
And Conrad may not know what to do with himself. Ohio win, and Sabres up 2-0 over San Jose. So could be Conrad may have to change his diapers later. Hey, guys, have a great night. Again, go UB. Good night, everybody.